This is an unabridged recording of Trojan 6 Part 2, written and narrated by G.H. Glass. Chapter 1. Daniel Kerr took Shoreditch High Street south and cut across towards Moorgate. Friday night had broken into alarms and scattered crowds. He kept the vehicle steady through gaps, eyes on doorways and side streets. A woman ran into the road ahead of him. Two infected chased her. She stumbled, caught herself but kept moving. The first attacker was close enough to reach for a jacket. Kerr braked hard and angled the car to block. He stepped out, raised his pistol, and fired once into the lead attacker's head. The body dropped. The second kept coming. Kerr took 2 steps to clear his sightline and fired again. The second fell face first into the floor. He pointed to the nearest shop doorway. "Inside!" he shouted to the woman. "Lock the door and stay away from the windows." She nodded, breath broken, and ran. The shopkeeper pulled her in and threw a bolt across the door. Kerr checked the street for more movement. None closed in on him. He got back into the vehicle, shut the door, and pulled away. He turned onto Chiswell Street. The Barbican Towers rose ahead in concrete and glass. He pressed the transmit key once. "Control, this is Trojan 6, 1 minute out from the Barbican on Silk Street."
Understood, Trojan 6. Proceed with caution.
Daniel Kerr took the next junction and brought the ARV onto Silk Street. The Barbican frontage ran long on his left. Ramps rose to the podium doors. A cluster of people in high vis were pressed into a recess by a shutter. 2 looked between Kerr and the ramp. One held a trauma bag tight against his chest. At the base of the ramp, a crowd of infected shifted in short bursts. Some stood and watched, others pushed towards the steps, jaws set, hands out. The bodies on the ground were obstacles, not warnings. Kerr angled the ARV across the mouth of the street to make a lane back out and to give the group a shield. He left the engine on, stepped out, and kept the car between him and the densest press. He raised his voice. "Move to me!" A woman in high vis stepped out first, steady but quick. 2 followed close behind. The crowd reacted to the movement and pressed harder to the ramp. Kerr advanced 3 paces and fired single headshots at the first 2 faces that broke from the group. Both dropped and were stepped on. The pressure eased for a breath. The NHS-3 reached the car and slid along to its side. "Up the ramp," Kerr said. "Stay tight to the rail. Don't stop." They moved. Kerr fell in on the outside to keep the centre line clear. 2 more came at a run. He shot the first and the second in turn. A third tried to grab the rail to pull himself up faster, but Kerr put a round through the crown. Its head exploded with a mix of blood and grey matter. The body collapsed and slid down the outer edge, taking 1 more with it. Halfway up, a security guard at the podium door waved a key and pulled the glass wide enough to fit a person. "Inside!" he called. The NHS-3 went through. Kerr held the threshold from the ramp, stepping back into the foyer. 2 figures hit the glass as the door swung shut. The guard threw the bolt. The pane jumped and held. "More coming?" the guard asked. "On foot from Margate," Kerr replied. 5 to 8 if they've made it." The guard swore under his breath and looked up to the high walk. Shapes moved there, leaning over the rail and staring down. He keyed his radio and only got a burst of static. Kerr turned to the NHS woman. "Who's in charge here?" "Patel," she said. 3 of us here. Others are behind with a kit trunk." "We hold in here," Kerr said. "No one opens that door unless the group arrives." She nodded, jaw tight. "I understand." Kerr looked back through the glass. The ramp shifted with pressure. The bodies he had dropped at the foot were no longer visible. The steps were wet and dark. He unbolted the door and set his shoulder to it, cracked it wide enough to work. "When you see them," he told the guard, "you stay on the bolt. We close fast." The guard braced himself. Kerr stepped out and took the middle of the ramp. The open space drew attention. 4 heads turned towards him at once. He shot 2, shifted, and shot the third and the fourth. Bodies were starting to litter the area surrounding him. The noise of his rifle mixed with the sounds of chaos and desperation emanating from the city itself. The amber glow of multiple fires lighting up the skyline, mixed with tracer rounds zipping into the night sky. The army must be involved now, he thought to himself. The second NHS group appeared from the Moorgate side. tight together, eyes up. 2 pushed the trunk, 1 dragged the duffel, 2 scanned the flanks. They covered 20 meters clean, and then a pocket of infected erupted from a doorway to the right. "Ramp!" Kerr shouted. "Direct to the ramp!" They ran for it. The 3 attackers cut the angle. Kerr dropped 2. The third reached the duffel carrier and bit high into the shoulder from behind. The man screamed, spun, slipped, and kept going with one hand clamped to the wound. The rest of the group held him between them and pushed on. Kerr walked backwards, controlling the line. "Don't touch him," he called to the others. "Keep him moving. Do not stop on the steps." They reached the foot of the ramp. The kit trunk caught on a gap and stuck. The pusher tried to yank it free and nearly fell. Kerr fired over his shoulder. "Leave it," he said. "Get moving." They let go and climbed. Kerr took heads only at 5 meters, then 8, buying them seconds. The bitten man stumbled on the 4th step. The nurse took his elbow without touching the wound and hauled him up. They moved again. At the top, the guard and Patel pulled people through. Kerr backed to the threshold and shot 2 more to keep the gap clear. The last pair reached him. He stepped inside and slammed the door with the guard. The bolt seated with a heavy click. Hands hit the glass and teeth snapped at air. Patel counted heads fast. 7, she said. Her eyes went straight to the man with the shoulder wound. "You sit." She led him to a meeting room off the foyer with a window in the corridor. "In there." He went in without an argument. She closed the door and engaged the lock. Kerr faced the crowd on the ramp. The pressure was not easing. More shapes moved on the high walk above, leaning to look down, then drifting along the rail. Inside the foyer, the NHS staff pulled back to the inner wall, wide-eyed and silent. Kerr pointed at the meeting room window. "He stays in there. No one opens that door unless he's not breathing." Patel nodded and agreed. Kerr kept his place at the glass and watched the steps outside. The bodies he had dropped were no longer obstacles. The infected climbed over them without a glance. The ramp door took another hit and shuddered in its frame. He looked once at Patel. "We hold here until I get the call to move," he said. "If the door fails, we fall back deeper into the building." She met his eyes. "Yes, okay." Kerr kept his eyes on the ramp for a few more seconds and then turned back to Patel. "Every person I've seen get bitten has turned into one of those things. Fast. Seconds to a minute. Do you know what this is?" Patel held his look. "We don't have any details. Call started over an hour ago. First brief said a violent infection. No confirmed agent. Transmission is blood contact and bites. Fever spike. Neurological change. Loss of speech. Extreme aggression. Then motor function stays and pain response drops. So no effective treatment," Kerr states more than asks. "Nothing we can apply here," she said. "We were isolating the bitten. We don't touch contaminated skin. We stop the bleeding, slow blood loss, not to save it from the turn. If they change, we've been keeping them contained." "In there, he won't stay contained," Kerr said, nodding to the meeting room. Through the window, Lewis sat hunched, hand clamped to his shoulder, sweat ran down his face, his breath came fast. "What happens next?" "Pulse spikes, temperature rises," Patel said, eyes redden, jaw sets. "When the change finishes, they just go for the nearest movement." "How long till then?" She glanced at her watch. "You brought him in less than 2 minutes." From the room, Lewis made a low sound and shifted in the chair. He pressed his head against the far wall and kept breathing in short, sharp pulls. Patel took 1 step towards the window and stopped herself. "You've seen this more than once," Kerr said. "Yes, on the way here." A portal went down on Old Street, an arm bite. He was talking for 30 seconds, and then he wasn't. She kept her voice level. "We pulled the rest away." Kerr nodded once, then we aligned. "Isolation is a waste of time. If he changes, I end it." Patel swallowed. "I understand." She looked at the other staff. "Everyone keeps their distance from that door. No one puts hands on him if he collapses." The nurse from the first group spoke under his breath. "We can sedate." "With what?" Patel said. "And to what end? It won't stop the process." He looked at the floor and fell quiet. Kerr faced the glass again. "Any chance this is temporary? Fever that breaks?" Patel shook her head. "Not from what I've seen, and not from what I've been told." Kerr listened to the door take another heavy hit. Then we plan like it isn't. Patel nodded. We move the uninjured deeper. We keep a clear avenue of escape between here and the car park. We don't touch faces, mouths, or wounds. If anyone else is bitten, we remove them or leave them immediately. Good, Keir said. He checked the meeting room again. Lewis's pupils had blown wide. His hands twitched on his knees. He stared at nothing for a long second, then fixed on Patel through the glass with a look that wasn't recognition. Patel saw it and set her shoulders. It's starting. We keep that door shut, Kerr said. We don't open it for a single person. Then we move. When we do, we will move as a group. Patel met his eyes. I agree. Kerr turned to the security guard. How many exits do we have that don't involve that front? 3, the guard said. Name's Wardle. Show me. Wardle pointed down the corridor. First, service corridor to the car park. 2 ramps, 1 shutter is down. The other stop's about a foot short, but I parked a van under it to block the gap. Good, Kerr said. We'll brace it further. The second, Wardle went on. A loading bay door to the east side. It opens to a service lane. If that lane is clogged with those things out there, it'll be a death trap. But the door's solid and it's wide. Third, the high walk access, Wardle said, pointing up a short stair. 2 fire doors to the walkway. They open inward from outside, outward from here. If we go that way, we're exposed along the rail. It's open ground, but there's fewer choke points. Any internal cut-throughs? Kerr asked. Maintenance service tunnel behind the arts block, Wardle said. Narrow, lockable gates along the run. It connects to the second car park. I don't have a master key for all the gates. Some are padlocked. Kerr nodded. Keys? Wardle tapped a heavy ring on his belt. Most of them, but not all. I can try the ones we've got. Cameras? Kerr asked. Podium cams are up, Wardle said. Car park feeds flicker. High walk cams are patchy. The power supply is dirty. Kerr pointed to the corridor. We make the car parks our fallback. 1 gate doctrine. We hold here at the ramp until we can't. Then we drop back to the car parks and lock down. If we have to move again, we take the service tunnel to the second ramp and look for a clean street. Wardle nodded. I can get you to each door. Do it, Kerr said. Mark ones you trust. Anything we can't hold gets chained and blocked now. I don't want any surprises when we have to move. A young woman in scrubs stepped out from the line and fixed on Kerr, her mouth twitching before her words came. You mean we're going back out there? Yes, Kerr said. We can't stay here. Whatever's happening outside isn't going to stop anytime soon. Carry only what you can run with. She looked at the others. What about all the kit? Essentials only, Kerr said. Dressings, fluid you can lift, cutter's tape, no trunks or trolleys. Anything that you can't carry stays. Patel backed him. You heard the officer. Pouches and bags you can shoulder, leave the rest by the wall. The porter unclipped a heavy duffel bag and set it down. A nurse started to protest, then closed the zip and pushed it against the skirting. Kerr pointed to the meeting room. No one opens that door. He stays in there. The young woman swallowed and nodded. She shifted a small backpack to her front and tightened the straps. Patel moved along the line, checking hands and sleeves for blood. Gloves on, masks if you have them. Keep your hands away from your faces. Kerr faced them all. When we go, eyes forward. If someone falls, then they get up on their own. Do not stop in the open. If I say move, you move. You understand? The young woman lifted her chin. Okay. Kerr nodded once. Form up on the corridor. Wardle with me. Patel, take the rear. We're not waiting for the pressure to break that door. Patel kept pace beside him. Where are we going once we leave here? Where is safe exactly? Plaistow Depot, Kerr said. It's a solid site. We can lock it down and keep a perimeter. I trust it more than this. Is anyone else there? She asked. Another ARV said they were heading that way. I don't know who made it, but the ground is good. We can hold it. She looked towards the shuttering door. And after Plaistow? I've seen automatic fire elsewhere tonight, Kerr added. That's the army. It's not us. We sit tight at the depot until they start taking back control. When they open proper collection points, we can move under their cover. Patel nodded. Plaistow it is then. We need to get moving before this door gives, Kerr said. Pack what you can run with. A crackle from Kerr's radio cut through the noise.
Trojan 6, this is Control. Situation port at your location, over.
Daniel Kerr keyed his radio. One bitten, isolated in a meeting room. The rest are uninjured and preparing to move. We're staging for a controlled exit. A beat of static.
Received. Trojan 4 is en route to your location. Estimate 10 minutes. Maintain your hold and advise.
Copy that, Kerr said. He looked to Patel and Wardle. We've got 10 minutes. We hold the door, mark the exits, and be ready to go on my call. Chapter 2. Kerr walked to the vending machine in the foyer. He flipped the rifle and drove the butt into the glass. He hit it again until the panel gave. Shards fell into the tray. He reached in and pulled out chocolate bars, crisps, bottles of water, and cans. He filled his backpack until it sat tight, then he carried the rest in his arms. Food and water, he said, setting a pile on the bench. Take something now, pocket what you can carry, we don't know when we'll eat next. The NHS staff stepped forward without fuss. Patel took 2 waters and passed them down the line. Small sips, she said. No one overdoes it. The young woman in scrubs, who had asked about going back out, took a bottle of water with both hands. She drank, stopped, breathed, and drank again. The porter opened a packet of crisps and shared it with a nurse, who shook his head and then took a few. Kerr handed a bar to Wardle. Eat. Wardle tore the wrapper with his teeth and chewed, eyes on the ramp door. Thank you. Kerr moved to each person in turn. 1 bar in your pocket, 1 bag of crisps, 1 drink. Keep your hands clean. Don't pass bottles mouth to mouth. They followed the instructions. Wrappers crinkled, cans hissed. The sound filled the space for a minute with steadied nerves. Patel checked wrists and faces for signs of shock. She pressed the water into the porter's hand and told him to finish it. The porter nodded and drank. Kerr zipped his backpack and slung it. He looked at Wardle. Show me the route to the car parks. We'll walk it once before we commit. Wardle wiped his hands on his trousers and picked up his keys. Come with me. Patel capped a bottle and stood. Everyone ready in 1 minute, gloves on and masks if you've got them. The meeting room window shook. Lewis stood with his forehead against the glass. His eyes were red and fixed. His mouth opened and closed. Teeth scraped the pane. He breathed hard, fogging the surface, and then cleared it with his tongue and pressed closer. The skin around the bite had gone dark. Veins stood out along his neck. His hands beat a steady rhythm on the glass, and his gaze tracked every movement in the foyer with hunger and intent. Patel stopped a step short of the door. He's completely gone. Keep back, Kerr said. No one touches that handle. Lewis rammed his shoulder into the door. The lock held. He dragged a chair across the room and then forgot it and went back to the glass, working the edge of the pane with his fingernails. The sound crawled under skin. Wardle swore under his breath. We should block it from out here. Do it, Kerr said. Cabinet, table, anything with weight. Wardle and the porter shoved a low cabinet against the frame. Kerr added a kit trunk, rolling it from the foyer and bracing it tight under the handle. The door shuddered again. The stack held in place. Patel kept her voice even. Eyes on me, she told the staff. No one looks at him. He's not coming out. But Lewis bared his teeth at the sound of her voice. He lunged at the glass again and again. Each hit left a new smear. He did not tire. He watched them the way a hunter watches prey.
Trojan 6, this is Trojan 4. We've got eyes from a distance. It's not looking good. The front of the Barbican is heaving with them. Tell me you're not leaving that way.
Kerr keyed up. Negative. We're not using the front.
Roger that. If you have a plan, now's the time to share it.
Copied, Kerr said. He looked to Wardle. We take the car park route, lock everything we pass. Wardle took a deep breath. Okay then. Everyone start making your way to the back. I'll place a few more items in front of the door holding that one in. As he points to the infected. Lewis behind the glass door of the meeting room. I'll follow you down, securing what I can. I can work with that, mate, replied Kerr. You heard the man. We start making our way out to the car park exit. We travel light and fast. Everyone got up looking sheepish at the thought of venturing back outside into the night. Patel could tell this was going to be a tough crowd. The sanctuary they had found was only ever going to be temporary. Stepping back outside was a paradoxal thought. Right, everyone follow me, demanded Patel as she took charge of the NHS staff. We keep quiet and together, no matter what happens. Thank you, nodded Kerr. She just smiled back. Trojan 4 says Trojan 6. We'll be making our way out of the car park entrance. It looks the clearest avenue of escape, Kerr said into his radio. Keep away from that location until the last moment. I don't want that route becoming compromised before we get there.
Roger that, Trojan 6. We will wait your call.
Kerr faced the ramp door. The glass jumped in its frame with each hit from outside. Wardle, chain it now. Wardle looped a heavy chain through the inner bars and the hinge post. He set a padlock and hauled it tight. The door settled deeper against the stop. Hands smeared the glass and slid away. Meeting room, Kerr said. Lewis slammed his shoulder into the meeting room door again. The stack they had built held, but the handle flexed. Add a bit more weight, Kerr ordered. Wardle and the porter dragged a metal filing cabinet across the tiles and jammed it under the handle. Kerr rolled another abandoned kit trunk against the cabinet and set the brake. He tested the stack with both hands, solid. Wardle clipped a keyring to his belt and took his place at the front, 1 pace left of Kerr. Daniel Kerr glanced once at the meeting room. Lewis stared through the glass with red eyes and a fixed jaw, breath fogging the pain. He hit the door again. The cabinet didn't shift. He stepped back to the ramp door and watched outside for a count of 10. The press outside wasn't thinning. More figures moved down the steps and packed against the glass. A sharp crack split the air. A white line ran across the pane from edge to edge under the weight of the press of bodies. Daniel Kerr keyed his radio. Trojan 4, our position is about to be compromised. We're moving now. I repeat, we're moving now. Patel paused and turned at the sound of slapping feet on tile. Kerr, the porter, and Wardle sprinting down the corridor towards her. Go now, Kerr shouted. The door's still locked, Patel yelled back, voice breaking. Glass shattered somewhere behind them. The sound ripped down the corridor from the podium front. No doubts about what had given way. Keys, Kerr snapped. Wardle shouldered through the packed line to the car park door, hands pressed in around him. He shoved them back with his forearm and bent to the lock. His hand shook. The key scraped metal and slipped. Hurry up, Kerr shouted, closing on the rear. Wardle, now! Wardle tried again. The key missed the ward and clicked off the faceplate. He swore, drew a breath, steadied himself, and aimed for the slot. The noise from the foyer rose, snarls, the slap of bare feet, bodies hitting walls. The sound spilled into the corridor and grew. Patel held the staff tight to the wall. No one moves, she said. Hands down, eyes front. Wardle's knuckles whitened. The key skated once more, then caught. He twisted. The lock turned a quarter and then stuck. He forced it. The bolt shifted with a dull thud. Open! Keir barked, bringing his rifle up past Wardle's shoulder as the first shadows broke into view at the far end of the corridor. The first infected hit the corridor at a run, mouths open, hands out. Kerr fired. The rifle cracked hard in the narrow hallway. The round took the forehead. The head burst and the body dropped. Red and grey splashed the wall and slid to the skirting. The second and third came behind it. Kerr shot both in turn. Skulls split. Spray hit the tiles. The noise made the line jump. Someone cried out. Another started to sob and cover her ears. Move! Kerr shouted through the door. Wardle yanked the handle. The door stuck a finger's width. He hauled it again, it gave. The porter pulled it wide and held it with his shoulder. 3 more infected charged the choke. Kerr took them one by one. Impact, drop. The next stepped over the last and slipped, hands clawing at the floor. Kerr shot him in the crown. The body went flat and blocked the feet of the next wave. Go! Patel drove the first 2 NHS staff through the gap. Stay tight to the wall. Do not stop. An infected woman in a torn dress hit the far end at speed. She vaulted the bodies, landed, and came straight for the line. Kerr shifted half a step and fired. The round split her face. She folded and slid, raking skin and bone across the floor. The corridor filled with the stink of blood and hot metal. The sounds of feet and snarls climbed as more poured through the broken foyer. Hands slapping the walls for balance, teeth snapping air. Wardle shoved people through. Keep moving! Keep moving! A young nurse froze in the middle of the line, staring at the mess on the wall. Patel grabbed the back of a scrub top and dragged her to the door. Eyes forward! Kerr backed towards the door, shooting in rhythm. Every shot a dead infected. One lunged low for his legs. He stamped the face into the floor with his boot and put a round through the back of its skull. Red spread across the tile in a fan. "Last three!" Wardle shouted. The final staff squeezed through. Kerr stepped into the doorway and fired one more shot down the corridor. The closest infected dropped into the bodies already piled there, the lane clogged with twitching limbs and dead weight. "Close it now," Kerr said. Wardle slammed the door. The bolt thudded home. Hands hit the other side a second later, then more hands and shoulders. The wood sunk into the frame. Kerr faced the group. "Down the stairs," he said, voice flat. "Now." Wardle pulled the next door and held it with his shoulder. Cold air rose from the car park. The stairwell smelled of oil and wet concrete. Sound moved from below, feet scraping, a low growl that did not stop. "Down," Kerr said, "single file, Wardle on the keys, I'm at the rear." They took the next stairs tight to the wall. The first landing turned and opened to a slice of view to the next flight. Two infected stood halfway down, heads snapping towards the movement. Kerr lifted his rifle and shot both in the head. The bodies tumbled and rolled to the bend. They stepped over them and kept the line moving. On the next landing, a door stood ajar with a chain hung loose. An infected's hand reached through the gap, clawing at the air. Wardle kicked the door onto infected's knuckles and slammed it. The hand retracted. He dragged the chain and hauled it tight. The metal squealed and a sound echoed down the shaft. "Keep moving," Kerr said, eyes on the void above. Shadows crossed the opening. A young nurse slipped on a wet patch and hit the step with a hip. Patel took a sleeve and hauled her upright. "On your feet," she said. The nurse breathed hard and nodded and set her boots one at a time. The bottom flight of stairs opened to level 1. The door was open. The space beyond ran in rows of pillars and parked cars. A low sound came from 3 directions at once. "Through," Kerr said, "then right to cover." They slipped into the car park and took the shadow of a pillar. The line bunched tight. Wardle pointed along the beams. Shutter straight ahead. Surface tunnel on the right after the ramp. An infected in a suit stepped out from between 2 cars and turned his head towards a group. It let out a long, wet rasp before it took off in a full sprint towards them. Kerr shot it and the body crashed to the ground. The round punched through and rang off bare concrete. The sound pulled 2 more from deeper in the row. Kerr took them both. Bodies dropped and left wide pools under the neon lights. "Move row to row," he said. "When I stop, you stop. When I go, you go." They crossed the first aisle and slid behind the next pillar. A door opened somewhere behind them and feet shuffled through. The sound grew. The car park was waking up. Wardle pointed with 2 fingers. "Shutters there." 3 infected crawled under the gap and dragged themselves clear. Shoulders scraping, Kerr shot them one by one before their hands could find purchase. They went slack and clogged the opening. Wardle and the porter dragged a metal trestle to the gap and jammed it under the lip. The shutter settled lower and held. "Tunnel," Kerr said. "Now." They moved along the wall. More figures rose from behind cars in 2s and 3s. Kerr shot on the front edge only. Those behind clambered over the falling without looking down. The noise built. The group kept to the pillars, heads low, steps quick and sure. A man in a high-vis jacket burst from between 2 vans and ran straight for the line. Not bitten. Clear eyes. "Help me!" he shouted. Hands up. "Stay back," Kerr said. "But I'm clean," the man said, protesting. He held his palms out. No blood, no marks. Patel nodded once. "With us, back of the line. Keep your hands in view." He fell in. A door banged open behind him and 5 infected poured through the staff entrance at a run. Kerr turned. He fired 5 shots in rhythm, and then a 6th when one kept crawling. The last body twitched and went still. The door swung on its hinges and hit the stop again and again. The group reached the far wall. The tunnel gate sat half open with a padlock hanging through the mesh. Wardle rattled a chain. "Wrong key," he said, hand shaking. Kerr took position facing the rows and fired at anything that broke free of cover. Pillars flashed in the muzzle strobe. Faces collapsed inwards. The line behind him held its breath. "Hurry," he said, not looking back. Wardle tried a second key, then a third. None took. He swore and yanked the lock. It held. The crowd answered the noise with a new surge. Feet slapping. Growls rose. "Stand off the gate," Kerr shouted. He stepped in, pulled the breeching shotgun from his backpack and fired at the padlock. The steel split and fell. Wardle dragged the chain clear and pulled the gate wide. The porter shoved it until it hit the stop. "Through," Kerr said, "now." They filed into the tunnel, concrete, narrow, one light on a failing ballast. Wardle slammed the gate and dragged a broken chain through to hold it for a breath. Hands hit the mesh, faces pressed, teeth worked through the diamonds. Kerr put 2 rounds through 2 foreheads and the bodies fell back, opened a view to more behind them. "Keep moving," he said. Halfway down the tunnel, a second gate blocked the way, a heavy padlock and a short chain. Wardle fumbled for keys, his hand shook. He missed a hole twice. Kerr took a step to cover him. A woman from the group turned her head at a sound behind him. An arm shot through the rear mesh from the car park and caught her wrist. Teeth met her forearm and tore. She screamed and yanked back. Blood ran to her palm and dripped on the floor. "Bitten," Patel said, voice flat. The nurse looked at Kerr with eyes already wide and wet. "Please," she said. She held her arm away from her body and started to shake. Kerr didn't step towards her. He didn't step back. He took a single breath and put a round straight through her head. She fell without a last word. The shot slammed through the tunnel and came back. The group flinched as one. Someone gasped. Someone else sobbed once and stopped. "Move now," Kerr said. "If we stall, we die." Patel stood very still for a second, then set her jaw and looked at the rest. "You saw it," she said. "We keep going." Wardle got the key in on the third try. The lock turned. He pulled the gate open with both hands and dragged it wide until it stuck on the grit. The porter shouldered it the last inch. Kerr fired more rounds through the rear mesh to slow the press of bodies and stepped backwards after the group. He did not look at the nurse on the floor. He did not step on her. He moved around and kept the muzzle on faces that kept coming. Wardle yanked the gate shut. Kerr fed the broken lock through and jammed it. It brought seconds, but not much more. "End of the tunnel," Kerr said. "Go!" The tunnel mouth opened to night air that carried distant sirens and the stutter of shouting. The east service lane ran straight, then bent left around a plant room. A security light flickered. The lane's lips held rubbish bags and a fallen pallet. Space to form, space to move. "Stack inside the bend," Kerr said. "Low, keep a lane clear in the middle." They packed in as ordered. Wardle checked the outer door. It had a push bar and no external handle. Good ground for a hold. From the tunnel, hands beat the gate. Mesh of the chain link fence gave a little and came back. Faces smeared blood into the diamonds. Daniel Kerr took a knee at the mouth and covered to line the corner. He sighted on anything that came free. The first infected through the tunnel slipped in blood and fell. The second climbed over and ran. Kerr shot him and a third behind. Bodies piled and slowed the rest. Patel moved along the crouching line, touching shoulders with a gloved knuckle. "Breathe," she said, eyes up. Kerr kept his rifle steady and let the lane draw his focus down to a narrow point. The tunnel kept pressing. The mesh bowed, then settled. More would come. A low engine note touched the air from the street beyond the bend. Lights off, weight in the sound. Kerr held still and listened. "On me," he said, voice low. "Hold this mouth. When the car turns in, we move on my word." They waited in the cold. Breaths white in the light from the door. The engine grew. The tunnel gate started to tear. The service lane filled with the sounds of claws on steel and feet on concrete. The car came into view fast and braked hard at the corner. A marked armed response vehicle, lights dead. 2 doors opened at once. "Trojan 4, a voice said. "On you." Kerr stood. "We're moving now." Chapter 3. The Trojan 4 SUV swung into the service lane and stopped hard. Doors opened. PC Alex Harris dropped from the passenger seat with the shield on his forearm and his rifle slung. PC Webb stayed at the wheel, ready to roll as soon as the civilians were packed. "Stack them," Harris said to Wardle, voice clipped. "All of them, now." Patel moved first. NHS in, knees to chest. Go, go, go. They packed into the SUV wall to wall, shoulders against shoulders. The porter crawled in last and pulled a stranger in by his sleeve. Wardle slammed the tailgate and tugged it twice to make sure it held. "There's no more room," the driver called. "That's it. We can't carry any more." Patel looked at Kerr. "We're not all going to fit. What are we going to do?" "Me and Harris will follow on foot," Kerr said as he looked around. He unslung his backpack, pulled a zip, and reached for a handful of magazines. He slapped a few into Harris's palm. Use them. Harris met his eyes. Are we really going to do this? Kerr nodded once. SUV takes the bend, then Silk Street. Don't stop. If the lane clogs, push through. Do not stop or open the doors under any circumstances, you hear me? Patel leaned forward between the seats. We'll see you at Plaistow, she said. No tremor in her voice now, only resolve. Kerr stepped back and slapped the roof twice. Go, go, go! The SUV rolled, engine low, lights dead. It cleared the bend and slipped into the street. Shouts rose, then the heavier sound of the engine pushed them away. The driver used the vehicle to make space and was gone. Kerr turned to the tunnel mouth. Hands still beat the mesh. The gate bowed and came back. Faces worked through the wire and broke skin on metal. The service corridor shuddered with a thud from something heavy hitting the metal door 3 floors below. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Kerr's breathing sounded too loud in the narrow space. Tell me what I'm looking at, Kerr whispered. Because my head's not... This isn't... Harris dragged the bolt on the stairwell door into place. His hands were steady. His eyes weren't. You're looking at what happens after a bite, he said. They turn, and they turn fast. Kerr's laugh came out wrong. Turn into what exactly? Into them. Harris jerked his chin towards the echoing thuds. Whatever the hell they are. That's not an answer, mate, replied Kerr. It's the only one I've got. Kerr pressed his palms into his eye sockets until fireworks popped behind them. We were responding to an incident at a nightclub. We had no idea what we were walking into. Hales is one of them now. Oh, I'm sorry, mate, I didn't know. He was a good bloke, Harris said, almost to himself. We was handing off a call to Borough. We shook hands with the on-scene, and then control screams officer down on the Trojan channel. Me and Dash just looked at each other and ran. Kerr looked down the steps to where darkness stacked up like water, and outside is... this? Yeah, outside is this, Harris said. We turned into London Wall, blue lights everywhere, smoke. There was people in the streets tearing at each other like dogs. We saw a PSU van on its side, someone banging from inside. We pulled out too. One had half his cheek missing. He swallowed. He smiled at me, and then he just started shaking. Look, Harris, that's not... people don't... Kerr felt his words starting to shrivel. This stuff doesn't happen in real life. I watched it, Harris said. Minutes, maybe less. Fever. Then the eyes go like glass. Then they just change. It's like a switch. And then they don't stop. Kerr leaned his head against the cinder block. It was cold, real, and solid. I saw a squaddy on the podium, he said. Face paint, helmet, the lot. He was moving like he'd forgotten how to wear his own body. Soldiers have turned, Harris said. We passed 3 uniforms, kit, rifle still on slings, chewing on a cabbie like he was a Sunday roast. I put one down, didn't even blink. Kerr stared at him. You shot a soldier. I shot something wearing a soldier's uniform, Harris said, voice flat. I'm not proud, but I'm not apologising. Then a muffled scream pealed up the stairwell. Harris and Kerr both flinched. Then the radios crackled. We heard those calls, that's why we're here, Harris said. He tapped his earpiece. Control's gone real thin. Half the voices are just screams now. Kerr's throat went dry. What do we even do? What's the play here, mate? It's the same as always, Harris said. We rest and recuperate at a hard point, and then we plan a way out of this bloody city. He took a breath. And we do not get bitten. Kerr's laugh this time was just air. Right, that old chestnut, he said. Harris glanced at Kerr's hands. You're shaking. Yeah, because I keep thinking I'm going to wake up in the van, and you're going to take the piss about my driving. You wish. You drive like a pensioner, Harris said automatically, then winced as another slam rattled down the door below. Look at me, Kerr. Kerr did. You keep your head clear, Harris said. We see teeth, we step back. We don't wrestle. We don't get noble. We put distance between us and whatever the hell those things outside are. We use a long tools. You copy? Kerr nodded quick, grateful for the instruction that fit in a palm. Copy. Good. Harris rolled his shoulders like a boxer. And if I get tagged, don't, Kerr snapped. Don't even say it. Look, you need to hear it. If I go, you do not hesitate. There's no coming back from it. I've seen it with my own eyes, Kerr. Kerr stared at the scuffled lino. You can't ask me to. I'm not asking, Harris said. I'm telling you what this looks like. It's spreading faster than Control says the word. It's not just the public, it's us. It's the army. It's everyone. Daniel Kerr scrubbed a hand down his face. Christ! Save that for later, Harris said. He checked his mag, racked the slide just enough to see brass, and then he let it go. The sound was too loud in the corridor. We move as a pair. We don't lose sight of each other. We answer Trojan calls where we can. We're not heroes. We're a ferry. A ferry? Kerr asked. Yeah, we shuttle people from dead to not dead, Harris said. That's the job until someone else, with a much larger hat, tells us different. Daniel Kerr exhaled. Something close to a laugh sanded down to nothing. A ferry? He repeated, as if testing the word for cracks. Harris looked at the bolted door and then back to Kerr. Yes, that is us. Kerr swallowed. The disbelief was still there. The bubble under his ribs, but it had nowhere to go. Right, he said. Mouths and distance. Mouths and distance, Harris agreed. He put a hand on Kerr's shoulder, squeezed once. You're not mad. Your eyes are right. It's the world that's wrong. Kerr nodded, his jaw set. Let's go and fix a corner of it. Kerr cracked the bolt. The stairwell's cold breath washed over them. Somewhere below, something screamed like a fire alarm with lungs. Trojan 4 and 6 en route, Harris said into his mic, and pushed the door open. He shifted the shield on his forearm and checked the grip on his rifle. Left pocket, he said, tapping the lane. We take the bend and hold. Kerr moved to the mouth and sighted long. Movement boiled at the far end, where the lane met the street. Bodies staggering, turning, then sprinting at any noise. He lifted the rifle and dropped the first face that pivoted towards him. The sound rolled down the brick and came back. 3 more turned and ran. He shot 2, let the third veer off to chase nothing. Now, he said. They pushed into the lane shoulder to shoulder. Harris took the inside with the shield. Kerr covered the outer edge and kept the line ahead clear. They reached the bend and set, backs to the plant room wall. Street-level noise rose in waves, shouting, the slap of hands on metal. A siren dying mid-wail, somewhere closer than it should be. The SUV's engine's note drifted and faded. Kerr imagined Patel telling them in the back to breathe and keep their heads down. He pictured Wardle squished into the boot compartment. 3 infected came from the right, fast and low. Harris drove the shield into the first and pinned it to the wall. Teeth snapped an inch from his wrist guard. Kerr shot through the shield's viewport and the body dropped. He swung left and took the second in the eye. The third hit Harris high and slid. Harris shoved it down with the shield edge and stomped a boot into its temple. Kerr put a round in it to finish the job. Clear, Harris said, voice even. Crossings next. Kerr leaned past the corner and took a quick glance at Silk Street. The east mouth was busy, but not packed. The heaviest pressure still pulsed around the Barbican front. Bodies moved in broken patterns, then turned and ran at anything that sounded like life. We go direct, Kerr said. No stopping, and keep that shield high. They stepped out. The street opened wide for a breath, and then tight as 2 figures changed direction mid-stride and ran towards them. Kerr raised his rifle and fired. 2 heads snapped back and then stopped moving. Another shape came from between taxis and grabbed at Harris's shield. Harris slammed the shield forward and peeled the hands off. Kerr shot through the gap and watched the body fold. A cluster poured from a side shop with glass already starred. 3 of them tripped. 1 climbed, 1 reached. Kerr took the point man. Harris blocked 2 with a shield and held them while Kerr shot past his elbow. The street stank of oil, blood and hot brakes. They reached the median and crossed the last lane. Hands gripped Kerr's plate and slid off. Harris carried the shield like a door and used it as one, battering space where there was none. A man in a suit came from the left and latched onto Kerr's sleeve. Clear eyes, no blood. "Please," he said, "help me." He tugged once, wild. "Run that way," Kerr said, pointing behind them. "Don't stop. Don't touch anyone." The man obeyed and took off running, and then he was gone into the night. They reached the far curb and cut into the taxi rank. Bodies clogged the gaps between cars, doors hung open, lights blinked. Horns sounded where hands had slipped down columns and stayed. 2 infected reached through a window for something that had already stopped moving. Kerr dropped both and moved on. "Keep left," he said. "Stay off the doors." Harris pinned one against the bonnet and pushed it sideways so Daniel could get a clear shot. Another rolled under a car and reached for ankles from the dark. Harris stomped on its wrist and pinned it, while Kerr put a round through its face. The face imploded and stopped moving. A new sound hit from behind. A group turned the corner fast. Kerr counted heads and angles without thinking. "No stopping," he said. "We need to run." They both ran. Feet pounded, breath punched. They cleared the last cab and slid into the shadow of a shuttered shop. Kerr looked back once. The group behind hit the rank and tangled in the doors and mirrors. Hands and feet flailing, mouths open filled the gaps and made a wall of their own. It brought seconds, and he took them. "Left," he said. "Service cut." Harris nodded and took the corner clean. The lane beyond ran tight between the backs of shops. Bins lay on their side. A skip blocked half the run with wood stripped and wires tangled. Kerr lifted and fired down the lane. The first face fell. The second kept coming. He dropped that one too. A third ran at the sound of the shots and hit the skip, spilled into the rubbish and clawed his way out. Harris glanced once. "I've got left." Kerr took right. "Move." The service lane narrowed and kinked hard past a stack of pallets. A door crashed open 3 meters ahead and 2 figures lunged through at chest height. Harris met them with the shield edge first. The first went back into the frame. The second slid along the polycarbonate and grabbed for his throat. Teeth clicked on the hard plastic. Harris shoved him and pinned. Kerr stepped in and fired one-handed at contact. The round tore through the soft point above the eye. The body sagged. Harris let it slide off and reset his stance. "Door," Harris said. Kerr put his boot on the edge of the door and slammed it twice to feel the hinge. It stayed in the frame. He locked it without thinking about whether anyone was behind it who didn't deserve to be. The lock clicked. That would have to be enough. They cleared the pallets and met a grid of light. A shop front had lost half its glass, and the remaining pane shivered in its frame. Figures moved inside like reflections that didn't know what they were reflecting. A woman in an apron pressed a palm against the smeared pane and left a mark. Her eyes were red, her mouth snapping. She leaned and the glass bowed. "Keep moving," Kerr said. They slid past. The pane let go and fell. Bodies poured through the gap. Harris shouldered one back into its frame. Then another. Then another. Kerr took the ones who cleared his line. The rifle's ammunition tore chunks from skulls. A fourth slid and caught a jut of glass. Kerr took that one too. The shop filled the lane with the smell of old food and copper. "Now," Kerr said, "run." They ran. The lane spat them into a wider cut behind an office block. A steel gate blocked the far end, padlocked, chained. No good. Kerr looked left. Stairs rose to a second-level walkway with an open rail and a long drop into a garden court. Movement flickered along the top. Not a crush. Singles. Twos. Manageable if they kept pace. "Up," Kerr said. Harris took the first flight, shield up. Kerr covered his heels. 2 infected leaned over the rail to reach. Harris drove the shield into the gap and knocked one sideways and over the rail. The second hung on. Kerr shot the hands. The body went limp and fell the same way. The thud was a sound you felt. They hit the walkway. It ran along the building and cut right across a short bridge back towards the main road. On the far side, 3 more waited and watched the noise. They turned as Kerr and Harris stepped onto the bridge and came forward in a line. "Hold," Harris said, shield braced. Kerr put 2 down before they hit. The third got his hands on a shield and clawed upwards. Harris slammed him back and Kerr shot past his ear. The third fell, arms open, and did not get up again. They crossed and dropped back to ground through the stairwell that stank of trapped breath and old water. The last landing was blocked by a fallen bike and a broken chair. Harris kicked them aside. The sound carried into the night. Something answered it from the bottom and hit the new gap. Harris met it with the shield and pinned it to the wall. Kerr shot down and cleared the line. They came out into a side road with a bus stopped across it like a barricade that no one had asked for. The doors were stuck half open. A shape moved inside, slow, then fast when it saw them. Kerr shot through the doorway. The driver's seat was empty, the wheel turned. The bus rocked against the curb. They slid past the shelter. Hands reached from behind the advert board and scraped against Harris's sleeve. He spun the shield and trapped the hands at a wrist against the post. Kerr shot through the gap and the hands went still. A cluster came from behind the bus in a tight knot. Kerr put the first down. The second fell over him and kept crawling. Harris drove the shield into the third and pushed them back, long enough for Kerr to finish the second and third where they lay. They cleared the open ground and hit a littered alleyway that ran back towards the main route. A stack of commercial bins made a choke point. A woman ran into view at the far end and stopped dead when she saw them. She lifted her arms and waved, mouth open. 2 shapes hit her from behind and dragged her down. Kerr didn't close. He had no way to save her without losing his own life. Harris's breath came steady. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He knew where to be. They reached the bins and found a gap, too narrow for the shield. Harris turned it sideways and wedged through on an angle. Hands snaked from under the bins, teeth snapped at nylon. Kerr put rounds into the gaps. The hands withdrew. They came through to the other side. A single infected broke free from a doorway and sprinted in a dead straight line at Harris. Harris pivoted and met it with the shield. The face hit plastic and streaked blood. Kerr took the head as it rebounded. "Left," Kerr said, cutting to keep cover. Harris followed. They ran the curb, low and fast, feet in rhythm, eyes everywhere. "In here," directed Kerr, as they both pushed into an empty store. Chapter 4. They slid into the convenience store shoulder to shoulder. They cleared the space as a pair to prevent any unwanted surprises. The street outside shivered with footsteps and that horrible, wet, breathy sound. Harris eased the door almost shut, leaving an inch of black to watch through. Kerr pressed his back to the wall, head tipped up, eyes shut for half a second like he was uploading air. "They don't tire, do they?" he whispered. "Don't look like it," Harris said, just as quiet. "They only need to get lucky once. We need to get lucky every time." A shape staggered past the gap too quick, too close. They both went still. The thing's hand slapped the glass and slid, leaving a trail. Then the sound moved on, rubber soles slapping pavement. Distant keening followed after like a siren with lungs. Kerr fumbled his pack open by feel. Zip, rustle. "Coca-Cola or holy water," he muttered. "Surprise me." Daniel Kerr produced a battered bottle of flat cola and a tiny plastic airline vodka bottle, both warm. He held them up like contraband. "One for the blood sugar and one for the nerves," he said. Harris arched an eyebrow. "You confiscated that from someone's top drawer?" "From mine," Kerr said. "Birthdays, baby showers, end of shift miracles. Never thought of the apocalypse." He cracked the cola handed it over. Take a sip, mate. Harris took a mouthful, winced at the sweetness, swallowed anyway. He passed it back. You are an embarrassment to nutrition, you know that? Talk to me about ethics next, Kerr said. He uncapped the vodka. He sniffed it, grimaced, then dabbed a little on a cut knuckle before taking the world's smallest swig. He offered it to Harris. Harris shook his head. I like my hands steady. They are steady, Kerr said. It's your eyes that aren't. How could they be after today? Harris nodded at the door gap. Don't look at me, look there. They listened. Concrete hummed. Somewhere above, metal boomed. A door hit and then hit again, until the rhythm went wrong. Kerr lowered his voice further, almost a breath. Have you noticed the smell? What? When they change? Yeah. I don't know what causes it. They smell so bad. Harris let that sit. You're doing the thing, he said after a beat. What thing? Asked Kerr. Talking so you don't think. Harris's tone wasn't unkind. Kerr capped the vodka. It's either that or I scream into my sleeve, he said. He slid both bottles back into the pack, careful with the zip. We got 60 seconds here or less. Let's catch our breaths and get ready for round number 2. Harris clenched his jaw and swallowed hard. Copy. Outside, a figure lurched back into view and stopped, head cocked, listening. Kerr held his breath until his chest burned. The figure twitched, scraping fingernails over painted brickwork, and shuffled away, dragged by some sound only it could hear. Harris exhaled through his nose, a careful leak. When we step off, we need to be fast, he whispered. Kerr nodded, eyes on the gap, hands on his rifle, but not white-knuckled now. Harris? Yeah, he responded. Thanks, Kerr said, for coming to help. You brought the bar, Harris said. I'll bring the hurt. They stood in that borrowed dark, counting heartbeats, the sweetness of coke clinging to their tongues, vodka prickling the air, the building's concrete lungs filling and emptying around them. Somewhere close, something found a new door and began to test it with patience. Kerr's mobile phone started to ring. Both men froze. Harris's eyes snapped to Kerr's pocket. Kerr's hand was already there, knuckles whitening as he dug past fabric and grit. The tune, some cheerful pop hook, skipped into its second bar. Shut it off, Harris breathed, barely a sound. Kerr's fingers fumbled, slid, missed. The ringtone got louder. He winced, shoved deeper, face pale. Outside, the street's wet breathing cut off like someone had pressed pause. Kerr found the phone by its corner. He pinched, yanked, thumbed for the side button, blind silence. Harris's shoulders sank a fraction. He mouthed, prepare to move. A heartbeat, and something slammed and cracked the door. It didn't bounce, it came through. The door whipped wide, and the thing pitched straight into the shop. Weight, stink, dead eyes, hitting Kerr full on and driving him backwards over a rack of crisps. They went down in a hail of foil and metal, a creature clawing, jaws working, inches from Kerr's face. Teeth! Harris barked. Kerr jammed his forearm under its throat, fighting for distance. He felt spit hot on his skin but no bite. He heaved sideways, booted at a knee. The joint gave with a wet crack and the thing collapsed just enough. Harris was already on it, one hard stamp to the base of its skull to pin it in place. Then the pry bar cracked, sharp and final. The body twitched once and went slack. The shop front exploded with movement, shapes in the glass, hands thudding, faces smearing and mindless. Harris spun towards the windows. Up! Kerr rolled, breath ragged, grabbed his rifle from under the fallen rack. He swept his sleeves, no blood, no breaks, then popped to a knee beside Harris. The first infected shouldered through the mangled door frame. Harris fired 2 rounds, centre of mass to stall, one to drop. Another shape, Another control burst. Count your shots. Counting, Kerr said. Up now, shoulder to shoulder. He punched around past Harris into a crawler, hooking through a display of pay-as-you-go cards. It folded. Left, Harris warned. I've got it. Kerr stitched 2. Reset. Moved on me. Moving, Harris said, firing through the gap, buying space. We're not holding this shot, mate. Agreed, Kerr said as he slung his pack. Checked his arc. The door was a funnel. The street beyond was chaos, but it was air. On 3. On 2, Harris corrected, already shifting. 1. They surged as 1, Kerr kicking the broken door wider. Harris lay in a short burst to clear the threshold. Boots hit glass, then concrete. Cold night, sirens, that endless keening. Street left, Harris called. Street left, Kerr echoed. And they pushed back out into the open, moving fast, miles and distance, a ferry against the tide. They angled into a feeder road that would take them towards Plaistow if it held. It wasn't clean, but it wasn't lost. Lights flickered on the far side. A set of shutters rattled in the wind and then stopped. The night had spread into spaces that should have been shut. Kerr slowed to a fast walk to keep his shots honest. 2 figures swung out of a side alley at arm's length. He shot one and stepped past it as it fell. He then shot the other before it could go for Harris, and it dropped. Cut through, Harris said, pointing to a service door with a dead keypad. Kerr pulled the breacher from his sling and set it high. Breach in, he shouted out of habit. He fired both slugs into the lockbox, shoved it with his shoulder, and the door gave. Heat and stale air rolled over them. He shoved the door back into the wall and took the dark alleyway with his rifle up. Inside, the sound had changed. Street noise cut to a low hum. Their steps echoed. Somewhere above, a security alarm peeped and stopped. The corridor turned left, then right, and opened up into a loading bay with empty pallets and a forklift truck that would not matter tonight. A single infected stepped from behind the forklift with a stagger that turned into a straight sprint. Kerr shot it. The body fell and slid to lay where it was. Another came from the shadow under the stairs. Harris kicked it back with the shield and Kerr finished it. They crossed the bay to a rolled-up door with half a metre of ambient light at its bottom. Hands wriggled under the lip and tried to grab for air. Kerr shot the wrists, then the heads as they tried to push through. Harris put the shield to the steel and braced. Lift! Kerr shook his head, not with that on the other side. They backtracked and took a side corridor. A door-marked stairs opened inward and smelled of bleach. They climbed 2 flights and came out on a balcony over a rear yard with 2 exits. One gate lay open, the other was chained. The open one faced a road with a clear run and only scattered movement. The chain on the second gate had been cut and re-looped out of habit. It would not hold under a push. Left gate, Kerr said. They dropped into the yard. 2 infected rose from in between bins and came on. Harris checked them into the wall with his shield. Kerr put rounds into each head, quick and flat. They crossed the yard in 5 seconds and hit the open gate. The road outside carried a single abandoned bus and a long line of parked cars with interior lights and doors ajar. Bodies moved in 2s and 3s. Nothing like the Barbican perimeter. They had room to work. They ran again. Kerr kept his pace steady and his muzzle level. Harris stayed just off his shoulder and took anything that came low or from the blind side. A child's bicycle lay on its side next to a front garden gate. The gate was open. A man stood in the garden and stared at the house with his back to the road. He didn't turn when they passed. They took a long bend that brought them back to a broader route. Distant movement clustered at a junction where the road linked around a rail bridge. Kerr cut into a side street to avoid it. They stepped over a fallen lamp and through broken glass that held their footprints like wet paint. Harris pointed down the next lane. Listen. A diesel engine idled somewhere ahead. Not the SUV. Deeper. Heavier. Kerr slowed and looked past the corner. A refuse truck sat skewed across the road with hazard lights frozen. The cab was empty. The hopper wasn't. Arms reached over the lip and worked at nothing. Bodies attached to them made low sounds that didn't stop. The road space to pass was tight. Back, Kerr said. The other route. They turned and moved 2 streets over. A delivery scooter lay on its side in a doorway, with the rider drawn across it. His helmet had a crack that ran ear to ear. He didn't move. Kerr stepped over his legs and kept going. Another corner, another lane. This one opened straight and flat towards a stack of buildings he knew. Beyond them, if the map in his head still meant something, the road would feed the approach that led to the depot. Close, Harris said. Close, Kerr agreed. They entered the last stretch and found a line of market stalls abandoned in the road. Tarps flapped, twine snapped against poles, boxes of fruit lay crushed into the tarmac. A group tore through the stalls on the far side, scattering crates, moving without a pattern. Then a pattern snapped into place as they picked up on the sounds of running. Right-hand lane, Kerr said, through the tarps. Keep that shield high. They cut along the backs of the stalls. Hands reached between gaps. Harris drove the shield into cloth and made bodies push back without seeing what was behind. Kerr shot through gaps where faces made the mistake of looking. Fruit pulp smeared their boots. The smell lifted and then drowned under the strong one they carried behind them wherever they went. They broke free at the end of the line and cut into open road. The depot's approach rose ahead, walls dark against a darker sky. The gate sat closed, figures moved behind it, a torch beam flared and cut, and then flashed twice in a pattern that was not an accident. Alive, Harris said. Alive, Kerr answered. Behind them, the market noise swelled as the group found where the sound had gone. They turned and ran in a tight knot at the last place they'd heard feet. The stall poles rattled. The tarps billowed. The first body spilled into the open and saw 2 men where there should have been 100. They screamed and started to run faster. Daniel Kerr didn't slow. He fixed on the gate and the shapes beyond it. He lifted his left hand high as he ran and held 2 fingers out to count pairs. The torch behind the gate flashed twice again in answer. Gate, Harris said. Gate, Kerr said, and kept his feet moving. He kept his shots clean, and he didn't look back. Chapter 5. The depot gates were half open when they reached them, a stack of vans and a sand bin holding the line. Floodlights hummed. The yard stank of hot engines, oil, and the city night. Gate, Harris called, voice rough. A head popped over the gatehouse window. Hold a sec, who's that? Kerr and Harris, open up. The chain rattled. The gap widened just enough for 2 bodies. They slipped inside, and someone dropped the bolt again with a clunk. For a second, the noise from outside felt like a step further away. They were sweat-shined and filthy, dust in their hair, grit up their sleeves, but the uniforms were in one piece. Harris rolled his shoulders and readjusted his vest. Kerr bent with his hands on his thighs, catching his breath. There you are, shouted a voice from the steps. Patel stood there, high vis thrown over scrubs, hair tied back, eyes bright with relief. Behind her, 2 NHS staff in navy tunics, a security guard still wearing his Barbican badge, and a porter with a bandaged forearm. You made it, Patel said. Thank you. We said we would, Harris spoke between breaths. The porter stepped forward first. Thought you were going to be right behind us. The door shut and we were off. We were, Kerr said. Had company on the way. You all right? We're all right, the security guard said. No bites. Bit shaken though. Good, Harris said. That's good. One of the nurses had a bag of saline bottles clutched to her chest like a football. She looked at Kerr. I didn't say thank you to you in the car. You're saying it now, Kerr said. That's enough. A constable jogged over with a crate of water. Drink, please, and do it slow. Kerr took one and handed it to Patel. She passed it to the nurse first, then took a sip herself. Harris drank, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and glanced at the fence line. Head count? He asked. All present, Patel said. My lot from St. Bart's, plus him and him. She nodded to the gardener porter. No one's missing from the SUV. We've even got the random guy from the car park. The SUV sat with its doors open, engine ticking down. The driver, A young PC with hollow eyes leaned on the bonnet and let out a laugh that sounded like he held a breath finally leaving. An older inspector came down the steps. "You the two that got here on foot?" "Yes, sir," Harris said. "Good work," the inspector replied. "Civilians inside to the break room. Medical to triage if you've got it. Officers to ops. We need every brain on the wall." Patel touched Kerr's arm. "We can set up in any room with a sink. We've got basic supplies." "We'll get you one," Kerr said. "You're safe here for now." "For now is enough," she replied. They moved as a group to the double doors. In the yard, two constables were lashing a transit van sideways to thicken the barricade. The generator coughed and then it steadied. Radios muttered on low. Beyond the fence, the street held to shadow. Far away, a run of tracer fire stitched across the night sky and wrinkled out. Something burned near the river. The smell rode the air. Inside, the depot was all scuffed lino and notice boards. The break room was crowded with chairs, a dead vending machine, and a kettle someone kept refilling. Patel and the team were shown a side office with a sink and a steel trolley. The security guard hovered at the door until Patel told him to sit. The porter eased himself into a chair and let his shoulders drop. Kerr met Patel's eyes. "You need anything, you tell that constable there. He'll fetch it." "We will," she said. "You two should sit down and rehydrate." Later, Harris interjected. "Ops first. We need the bigger picture." He slid onto a bench by the lockers for half a second anyway, wiping grime off his face with his collar. Kerr leaned next to him and closed his eyes. The noise inside his head settled into a dull throb. "Still breathing?" Harris asked. "Just," was all Kerr could muster. The gatehouse phone rang twice and stopped. A constable leaned out of the window and pointed down the road. "Movement!" Harris and Kerr headed for the gate. Two vans were parked nose to nose, forming a choke point. A sand bin and a line of trash barriers filled the gaps. Floodlights washed the tarmac in hard white. "Where?" Harris asked. "South side, by the bus stop." Kerr squinted by the mesh. Shadows wavered, and then resolved into three figures drifting up the centre line. Another followed a few paces behind, then two more broke from a doorway and joined them. "They're finding the light," Harris said. A young sergeant jogged over from the yard. "Hold positions! No one opens this gate." A young PC by the latch swallowed. Do we kill the floods?" "No," the sergeant said. "We keep them on. We need to see." The first figure reached the edge of the beam and didn't stop. It bumped the fence, palms slapping the wire. The others shuffled closer. Hands gripped, slid, gripped again. Throats worked. No words. Daniel Kerr listened for the city. He heard no traffic, no sirens close by. Far away, a short burst of automatic fire rattled and then faded. Tracer rounds streaked over the black line of the buildings to the west. A dull orange bloom rose and held. "We're not the only ones still up," Harris said. "No," the sergeant replied, "but we might be the only ones with a fence that holds." More bodies drifted in from the side streets, a dozen now, then more. None ran. They passed and scraped and mouthed at the mesh. Teeth clicked on the wire. An elderly woman in a housecoat worked her fingers into the diamond gaps until it split her skin. She didn't react. "Hold your fire," the sergeant said. "Save it for when we need it." A constable dragged a transit across another gap and left the engine running. Another stacked Harris panels against the inner line. The gatehouse officer called numbers under his breath, counting the faces outside. 17? 20? The floodlights hummed. Gnats spun in the glare. Everything beyond the core of light looked deeper and flatter, as if the world ended at the fence. A PC standing near Kerr started to pray under his breath. He shut his eyes and touched his forehead with two fingers. Kerr glanced at him without passing a comment. "Any word from the river?" Harris asked. "Docklands went off the air," the sergeant said. "Fire at Blackwall. Reports of gunfire on the bridge. Nothing solid." "North?" Harris asked. "Islington stays hold. Barnet is quiet or dead. Just depends on who you ask, really." Daniel Kerr watched a man in a high street suit drift along the line and stop at the main gate. The man's tie hung loose, his lips moved. He pressed his forehead into the wire and stayed there staring. How many before they push this over? The young PC asked. As many as it takes, a sergeant replied, so we don't let them stack. A patrol from the yard moved to the corner post with long poles. At the sergeant's nod, they started jabbing through the mesh from the inside, pushing bodies back without letting them grab. It worked in a slow, dull way. The crowd recoiled and then returned. Hands rose again. Keep it gentle, the sergeant said. The noise will only draw more. Another tracer round climbed and died over the river. A new column of smoke marked the skyline. The wind shifted and brought the smell of burning plastic and something sweet that did not belong in the air. Daniel Kerr checked the latch on the inner gate and the chain on the outer. He pulled once, felt the bite and left it. Harris stood with him, counting faces without speaking. We've got time, Harris said. Yes, but for how long? Kerr replied. They turned back towards the doors. The fence rattled behind them with a steady, patient force. The yard crews tightened straps around the transit and checked the wheel chocks again. No one raised a voice. No one ran. The sound of the city moved like weather across the roofs, and the line at the gate thickened by another 3. Inside the depot, the noise had shifted. The yard's rattling fence gave way to low voices. Kettles clicked and chair legs scraped on lino. The smell of hot coffee and wet coats drifted down the corridor. A constable led Patel and the NHS staff to a side office. It had a sink, a steel trolley, and a desk that had been cleared with one sweep of an arm. The security guard took the corner chair, hands clasped. The porter eased himself into the second chair and let his head tip back. We'll make this work, Patel said. She opened a holdall. Gauze tape, alcohol wipes, 2 tourniquets and a box of gloves. If anyone bleeds, keep them at the door until I say. The room next door was crowded with spare chairs and a dead vending machine. Someone had found biscuits and set them on the side on a paper plate. A young officer poured tea, hands shaking so violently the spoon chimed against the mug. Sugar? He asked. 2, please, a nurse replied. Harris sank into a chair for a moment and rubbed his face with the inside of his collar. Grey came off his skin. Kerr stood over the sink and ran water over his hands until the tap coughed air. You all right? Harris asked. Define all right, Kerr replied. Yourself? Close enough. A young officer hovered near them with his helmet under his arm. Is it true about the soldiers? He asked. People are saying they turned. We saw uniforms on the ground, Harris replied. Some were moving, some were not. The officer swallowed. It doesn't sound real when I say it. It doesn't have to sound real, Kerr replied. It's still bloody happening. The inspector stepped through the doorway. Civilians stay put. Medical is in the side office. Officers to the operations room. Bring your notebook and anything with a charge. Daniel Kerr glanced at Patel. You need anything else before we go? We'll manage, she said. Close the door behind you and keep your voices low. Some people are sleeping. Wardle raised a hand. Thank you. Thank you for getting us here. Kerr nodded. Harris did the same. They headed down the corridor towards ops. Radios crackled in short bursts. The building felt full and thin at the same time. Voices kept low so the walls would not have to carry them any more than they could bear. Behind them, the kettle clicked again and someone whispered that the milk would not last the night. The calm held, but only because everyone kept their hands busy and their voices steady. The ops room was a mixture of tiredness and anxiety. A wall map of London filled one side, already scarred with drawing hole pins and marker streaks. A whiteboard listed call signs and short notes. Desks held piles of incident printouts, battery packs, 2 laptops on power saving, and a tangle of charging leads that no one dared to touch. The inspector stood by a map with a stack of acetated overlays. Right, we put the city back in our heads, he said. We put the work in now, and we plan from what we know. A sergeant handed out marker pens and packets of pins. Colours are simple, she said. Red are for confirmed incidents or mass assaults. Amber for uncertain activity. Green for passable routes in last hour. Black tape for closures or fires that we can see from here. A constable rolled a trolley closer with post-it notes, string, and 2 clipboards. Another started a log sheet on paper. The printer had died 20 minutes earlier. Daniel Kerr and Harris moved to the map. The inspector slid an overlay into place and pinned the corners. Start central and work out, he said. Call out what you place. Barbican service ramp, Sergeant said. Hostiles confirmed by Trojan 6 and 4. Red pin. She pushed the pin in without hesitation. Clerkenwell Road, junction at John Street, a constable added. The road blocked by a bus on its side. Fire in the lower deck. Black tape across that, Sergeant. Farringdon Station concourse, another said, reading a scribbled note. Multiple injured, no uniform on scene. Amber pin. Kerr took a green pen and drew a short line up the side street they'd just used. This corridor was passable 15 minutes ago, he said. From London Wall up past the museum service lanes. Mark green, timestamp 1:15. Harris watched the board for a beat. Tie your green marks 2 o'clock, he said. Green ages fast out there. A sergeant nodded in response. Every mark gets time. They worked the map in quiet bursts. Amber pins clumped along the river, black tape crossing the bridges in thick lines. Blackwall Tunnel reported blocked, the sergeant said. Smoke visible from here. Take both ends. Rotherhithe? The inspector asked. Unconfirmed gunfire earlier, sir, a constable said. No update in an hour. Amber pin. Tower Bridge, Harris asked. Lifted earlier for river traffic, the inspector added. No one's lowered it since. We'll call it gone until we hear different. Kerr drew a slow green line up the A1 towards Holloway. There were fewer bodies north of Angel, he said. No flames on the route. I'll mark that as possible. Note fuel scarcity, Harris added. We've got 3 transit vans with half tanks. Anything longer than 20 miles is going to need a refill plan. The sergeant pointed to a cluster around Old Street. This area is a complete mess. Red pins just keep stacking. We avoid unless we have no choice. West, Kerr asked. Marylebone Road. Reports of barricades near the parks. A constable said. Civilians, no uniform seen. Might be friendly, may not be. Right, amber line out along the A40 to the ring road, the inspector decided. We'll timestamp that. Harris leaned over the desk with the incident logs. Categorised calls. Bites and assaults in one list, fires and structural hazards in another. Sightings of armed groups in a third. Use street names first, then landmarks. The constable at the log sheet nodded and started a new grid. Category, location, time, and confidence. Good, Harris said. Confidence matters. If it's a rumour, say so. The room settled into a rhythm. Someone read, someone marked, someone logged. The whiteboard picked up headings, routes, fuel, assets, civilians on site. Assets, the sergeant said, tapping the word. What have we actually got? 3 transits, 1 with radios fitted, a constable replied. There is a Land Rover with a bull bar. We've got a few riot shields and some long batons. There's 10 rifles counted, mixed magazines, and overalls for 8. Medical? The inspector asked. Patel has a room, basic supplies, Kerr said. No bloods or antibiotics. Enough dressings to get us through a few more scrapes. Fuel? Harris asked. Half tanks, the constable repeated. Jerry cans are empty. Nearest depot is closed or empty. We don't know which. The inspector rested a hand on the map. We're not evacuating the city tonight, he said. We're identifying routes and safe locations. We support our fence and prepare to run at dawn, if there is one. Dawn helps us and them, Harris said. Light helps them find us. What we're going to need is discipline. A radio on a desk crackled and died to a hiss. A constable adjusted a squelch and left it alone. Kerr stepped back from the board. We need a way west or north, he said. The south is all fire, and the bridges, they're a gamble. North is narrow but quieter, Harris added. A1 or A10 to the ring road, then we'll see if the M25 is moving. The inspector drew a circle around a corridor from Clerkenwell up through Holloway to Finchley. Call this Corridor 1, he said. The A10 becomes Corridor 2 if we get confirmation from Stoke Newington. Corridor 1 needs a test, the sergeant asked. A small convoy just before first light. 1 van, 1 car, both with a radio. Scout the junctions and return. Harris nodded. That's smart. That way we don't commit everyone to a dead end. A knock sounded on the frame of the door. A PC from the gate poked his head in. More outside now, boss, he said. They're quiet, but there's more. Log it and rotate the outer posts, the inspector replied. No one stays out there longer than an hour. The sergeant placed 1 last green pin north of Angel with a neat time note. That's our best line for now, she said. For now, the inspector agreed, capping his pen. We keep adding until the map tells us what to do. Kerr looked at the clusters of red and the thin green veins that stretched between them. The work felt like breathing. He wrote 0040 next to the last mark and stepped aside so the next hand could make its line. The room worked in low voices and pen scratches. Kerr stood back from the map to rub his head when he felt a dull buzz in his pocket. Once, and then again. He frowned and took the phone out. The screen showed a name he hadn't seen in a while. Ellie, Mark's wife. He looked at Harris. Harris saw the name, saw Kerr's face, gave a small nod towards the door. Daniel Kerr stepped out and shut the ops room door behind him. The corridor light flickered once and held. He answered the phone. Ellie? A breath hit the line like she'd been running in place. Then her voice came through, tight and raw. Daniel, thank God. I've called everyone. You picked up. Is it really you? It's me, he said. I've got you. A child cried faintly in the background. Something thumped against wood. Ellie sobbed once and forced it back down. I can't get hold of Mark, she said. His phone just keeps ringing. I'm sorry to call you. I didn't know who else. They're outside. They keep hitting the door. I don't know what to do, Dan. Kerr pressed his free hand against the wall and kept his voice steady. Look, Ellie, where are you? I'm at home, she said. We're upstairs. I've got the chest of drawers against the bedroom door. I've put the kids in a wardrobe with blankets. They're scared, Daniel. I can't get them to stop shaking. Look, Ellie, you did the right thing, Kerr said. Stay upstairs, keep the lights low, stay away from the windows, keep your phone on you. Now, how many are outside? I don't know, she said. 3, maybe 4. It sounds like more. They go quiet and then they bang. The glass in the kitchen door is already cracked. I can hear them through it. Any injuries inside? Is anyone hurt? No, she said. We're okay. I cut my hand on a drawer handle, but it's nothing. Good, he replied. Have you got water upstairs? I've got a jug and 2 glasses, she said, and whatever's left in the taps in the bathroom. Keep the bathroom door shut when you're not in there, Daniel said. If someone gets in downstairs, you want as many doors between you and them as you can. Another thump sounded down the line, dull and close. A child cried louder. Please don't hang up. I won't, he said. How long since you heard anyone on the street? I heard a car earlier, she said. It stopped, then nothing. There's a fire somewhere. I can see it from the landing window, but I pulled a curtain. I'm trying to do everything right. I don't know if I am. You are, Kerr said. Listen to me. Keep everyone away from the door. If the handle moves, you hold the drawers with your back and you tell the kids to stay quiet. Do you understand? Yes, she said. Have you seen Mark? Kerr set his forehead against the cold paint. He let the silence sit a second longer and then he spoke. I haven't seen him today, he said. I don't have his location. I'm sorry. Ellie made a small sound, not a cry, a breath that told him she understood more than his words gave. She spoke through it. I can't do this alone, she said. I'm trying to be calm. I'm trying not to scare them. I don't know how long the door will hold. I don't know if anyone is coming. Kerr looked back at the ops room door. The murmur of voices reached him through the wood. He could still see the map in his head. He could see the red pins and the black tape with the thin green lines that tried to be roads. I'm coming to you, he said. You can't, she said at once. It's bad. I can hear it out there. Please don't leave somewhere safe, Dan. I'm coming, he said again. You keep the phone with you. Put it on silent. If it disconnects, I will still come. If you have to move, tell me first. Where will you park? She asked, voice small. I'll stop short, he said. I won't pull up to your house. It's too much noise. I will come on foot. You keep the curtains closed and you wait for me to call at the door. I won't shout. I'll call your name. You don't open it until you hear me say it twice. Do you understand? Yes, she said. Please hurry. I will, he said. Stay upstairs. Keep the lights low. Keep the door blocked. Tell the kids you're waiting for a friend. You're doing well. The line crackled. A beat of silence. And then her voice came again. Daniel, I'm here. Thank you. The line went quiet. For a second, he thought he'd lost her. Then he heard the soft sound of the phone moving, her breath, the faint murmur of a child. The call held. Harris stepped into the corridor and didn't speak. Kerr ended the call and slipped the phone back into his vest. Ellie, Harris said. Yeah, Kerr answered. She's at home. She's got the kids, and those things are outside of her house. Kerr nodded once. No judgment, no surprise. You're going, aren't you? He said. I have to, Kerr replied. That's my partner's family. Harris looked towards the ops room and the lines on the map that they'd drawn. He looked back. Then we get what we need and don't waste time, he said. Tell the inspector, we plan the route, we keep our heads. Kerr breathed out. The air in the corridor felt thin. Let's do it. That's the end of Trojan 6 Part 2. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe and hit the like button on the video. If you want to support my channel, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the comment section and on the channel bio. This will be huge in helping me grow the channel and bring more of what you love to YouTube. Thank you very much for listening. Part 3 is on its way.